Hello, Carrie and friends. My name is Phaedra Patrick, and I'm the author of The Curious Charms of Arthur Pepper. I understand your book club has been reading it, so thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity to answer some of your questions. Number one is, for me, this book really captured some of the emotions and experiences of loss and grieving a loved one, especially a parent or spouse. Was this book based on your own experience? And yes, it was. Not parents or a spouse, but while I was writing it, a close friend had died. She was just 3 years older than me, and it was one of those friendships where you dip in and out of each other's lives, but you always kind of keep in touch, and you kind of expect, a friendship like that to last into your old age, and so it was very, 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 very sad and quite sudden when she passed away. And so when I was writing the book, I was able to tap into those emotions and think about, how you should grab hold of life with both hands. And I think she would have really wanted me to write this book. I think she'd have told me to go for it. And I was able to put her name in the book at the back in the acknowledgements, so that her parents and daughter had that kind of that recognition of her and what she meant. And she was kind of a brave lady, full of spirit and good humour, so I like to think that she'd like the book. I think she'd be quite proud of me. She's not here, but yeah, so it was kind of written with bereavement in mind, and I think all the books I write, every element of the book has got a little story behind it, either something I've experienced personally or something that's happened in my life or that I know about, and it just really brings that personal element to them. Are the charms meant to be metaphorical? For example, Arthur discovers some of Miriam's hidden charms, but also some of his own charms via her charm bracelet. So it was always the physical charm bracelet first. It wasn't the plan for the metaphorical charms to come through. I don't think I'm that clever to do that. The title just came to me, so Arthur's name came first. Arthur wanted a traditional English name, and then Pepper kind of represents the quirkier side of his nature. So it was the two sides of his personality, the old side and the new side with Arthur Pepper. And I just thought the bracelet has got some charms that are a bit curious on it, and the name came to me. With some books I don't have a title all the time I'm writing them, but this one kind of came straight away up front. It was like, The Curious Charms of Arthur Pepper, that's what I'm calling it. Nobody questioned it, so that's what it was. And then, but after that I did kind of quite like the play on words, but some people might find Arthur curiously charming as well. So I kind of like that they went together. The third question: although they were very happy throughout the book, Arthur keeps wondering if he was holding Miriam back from a more exciting life. Was she possibly holding him back as well? Did the marital happiness Miriam find with Arthur make her content to give up these adventures? Is this typical of long married happy couples? They could be very satisfied or settle into their own domesticity and not feel the need to pursue greater adventure. I kind of like to think that a life's an adventure in itself, whether, and some people find that adventure by jumping on a plane and going to India, and some people might find it from going to a charity shop and getting a new cake from a bakery. There's no right and wrong about it. And I come from a small town too, and some people here are just happy kind of living on the same street, going to a local school, meeting a local person to get married, having a family, going on holidays just, an hour away. And some people are really happy with that, whereas others do want these more bigger adventures. And I think Arthur was completely oblivious, he's blissfully unaware that Miriam had this little, a few years of adventure before meeting him. And Miriam herself had made that decision to kind of, she'd been there, she'd done that, and then she met a man that she really fell in love with. So I think in a lot of relationships there's compromise. Both partners have got to come forward and say what makes them happy. And then, I suppose a good partnership is when you find that balance between you, and it's not happy when you don't find that right balance. And I think Miriam and Arthur, even though she'd had an adventure and he didn't know about it, they'd found that happy balance for 40 years of marriage. And it's only when Arthur finds the charm bracelet that that kind of changes everything in his mind and question what's gone before. So yeah, and I think they're also from a different generation where, you know, when you look back to maybe the 70s and 80s when Arthur and Miriam were younger people, there wasn't as much foreign travel. People didn't go to universities in different cities across the country. You know, people didn't own cars, and now with all those being more popular and accessible, people are, you know, more, you know, they're more open to travelling and having wider adventures, but I think they were just happy together. 4 is the central theme of the story that survival, discovering oneself and self-growth is possible after a tragedy or heartbreak. Yeah, I kind of never really thought about a theme for it. I know some people go, oh, this book's about love, or this book's about such a thing, but for me it was just kind of Arthur being in one place and then taking him to another place, so I felt like he was a friend and I was giving him a helping hand, just saying, come on Arthur, I'll help you out, and then at the end of the book it was kind of taking him to a happier place where, you know, he could like live on his own with his friends and family, and he didn't need me to help him any longer. So it wasn't specifically about helping, you know, it wasn't specifically about heartbreak. And I think all books and films, they start with a character in one place, and the book or film is about their transformation and journey to another place. And I think that's what I try to do with mine. So it might not have a particular theme, but it is about that. For me, it's about that transformative journey of taking one character and taking them to a different place. What gave you the idea to use a charm bracelet to represent Miriam's past? Well, I find this one quite interesting because it kind of infers that Miriam came first and then the charm bracelet was a kind of device, and it was actually the other way around. It was always the charm bracelet came first. So I know lots of writers will pick a character, comes through first. For me it's plot comes first. And the idea was that I own a charm bracelet from my childhood, and I was showing my son the bracelet one day and trying to remember the story behind each of the charms one by one, and there was no interesting stories really. It's kind of, you know, I bought one from a train museum, or my auntie bought me one, but I thought it would be a really interesting story if there was a charm bracelet and each of the stories behind the charms, you know, is quite a bigger story. Sorry, my dog is wanting to come in, so I'm just going to let her in. Sorry, she's run off now. I'm in my writing shed and she scratches the door trying to come in. She's back again now. Sorry, I'm just going to... Right. Sorry, she's coming. Right, I'm hoping she don't come again. She's a bit crazy. So sorry about the charm bracelet. Yeah, I thought it'd be really interesting to tell the story behind the charms one by one. And then I kind of thought, oh, it would be interesting if a man found it, and trying to put myself in the body of a 69-year-old man. I'd written about 6 books before, so I kind of wanted something to challenge me, and all the others hadn't been picked up by a publisher, so I wanted this one to be the one that made it. So I thought it'd be quite interesting to take on the challenge of writing as an old man. So the bracelet always came first. And I'd also written quite a few short stories, so I kind of thought that'd be an interesting way of doing it if each of the charms had its own short story behind it, and then they almost link through like a bracelet. And then Arthur came next. He was the person to find the charm bracelet, and then with Arthur came Miriam. So yeah, it was the other way round. It wasn't Miriam's past and the charm bracelet to represent that. It was the charm bracelet and then what was the story behind the charm bracelet. So number 6, I love charm bracelets and would never store one away. I assume Miriam placed it away because her fiance died, but was it more than that? I think jewellery just means different things to you at different times of your life. You might have something and wear it forever, so kind of a wedding ring or engagement ring, and you wear that forever. Or sometimes you can have something for your birthday and wear it for 2 years, and then you get something else for your birthday and wear that instead. I've got kind of a brooch from an ex-boyfriend, and I don't wear it because it kind of references a different relationship, but I don't kind of particularly want to get rid of it either, so it kind of sits in limbo in a drawer somewhere. I think it was the same with Miriam, in that the bracelet had meant something to her, but it was a part of her life that was no longer. It was part of her life that she no longer wanted to think about. She'd moved on. She'd found happiness, a different kind of happiness. So she didn't want to get rid of it, but she didn't want to wear it either. So she kind of put it away in a boot, and there it stayed until Arthur found it. So the last question, I found it interesting that neither of Miriam's children came to her funeral. I can understand them not coming to Arthur's, but not Miriam. Why? I know the daughter's reason, but still. Yeah, I think it's quite clear in the book. So Lucy doesn't go because of her miscarriage, and I think that's kind of understandable. Sometimes you want to do something but just physically can't do it. I remember last year my neighbour sadly died, and I was there on the doorstep ready to go to his funeral, but it was the third one in a year, and I just physically could not go to it at that moment in time. And I think Lucy was the same. With Dan, his wife had broken a leg, he's got young children, he's got his own business. It's a 24-hour flight from Australia to the UK, so he wasn't able to make it. I think in hindsight, this is one strand of the book I might have changed, in that I finished writing the book 4.5 years ago now, a long time ago really. And I think if I could rewrite that little bit, I probably would, and I would probably take his children to Miriam's funeral, but then made a disconnect between them and Arthur still. Maybe they just went briefly and weren't able to see him. Maybe they drifted apart afterwards. But yeah, I think I probably would have just tweaked it a bit so that they went along. But I think probably all people who write books would do that. If they could revisit a piece of writing or a book, they'd make tweaks and changes. And I think you spend so long on them, probably 18 months on that one, and it's just everything's just in your head, and it's not till it goes out into the world when readers read it and give you their opinions and thoughts that you actually think about it in different ways. They put a different perspective that you might not have thought of everyone's perspective, just kind of your own and the characters. So yeah, I think if I could go back, I'd probably change that so they went to the funeral. So thank you very much for asking these questions. I hope I've answered them okay for you, and yeah, hope the book club goes okay, and thank you for the opportunity. Bye.